Coming up, we review the Netball Super League season in 2 parts. We look back at the grand final, where the game was won and lost, as a memorable season ends with London Pulse crowned champions. We'll hear from the winners and losers at the O2 before embarking on an in-depth review of the season in part 2. That includes the unlocked team of the season, some of our own awards, and we'll debate what comes next as the signing window opens and 2.0 gets a chance to be reviewed. We'll do it all in the company of mystic Clare Jones. Hello, welcome along. We had to give you top billing, Clare, right? After your prediction after round 1.
I can't believe it. I actually cannot believe it. Round 1 predicted Pulse Lightning final.
Probably should have just been a mic drop moment. We shouldn't have even got you back to discuss it, right?
I remember having a little wobble and thought, should I have gone Thunder? But no, I think definitely stayed strong and it paid off.
But look, we've got lots to get into. Chloe, you and I were there. It was clearly a fantastic occasion. It's been a long season, like peaks and troughs the whole way through it. I think generally perceived as a really strong finish to the year, but we're going into the signing window and not all of that is pretty transparent. So like it feels like we're still all over the place. But before we get into things, Claire, we haven't spoken to you for a little while. How have you been? What have you been up to apart from strawberries and champagne at Wimbledon, according to your Instagram?
I mean, I would highly recommend everyone who's not done Wimbledon, go and treat yourself. It's a great day out. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've done a full season, my first full season as a kind of spectator. And I don't know what's more tiring, if I'm honest, playing or spectating. It's more recently I do have some news actually. My boyfriend and I will be moving to Australia to the end of summer. So very excited about that. So we have been getting ourselves in order, ready for a little bit of change of scenery.
It's another mic drop, no, Paul?
Here's my prediction. It's come true. I'm off. I'll see you later.
Bye. Thank you for the season, guys. I will be off now. But no, it's been a long-term goal of mine for several years, and it was kind of always one of those things that, right, if I don't get selected for this, I'm gonna go to Australia, or if I didn't get onto my doctorate that year, I'm going to Australia. But they both kind of kicked off at the same time for me, so it's always kind of been put on hold. But if there was ever a time to just kind of do it and go for it, it was this year. So Jack and I are in a good place kind of job-wise, and we've both been able to get jobs out there. So we've just gone, right, let's go on a little adventure.
That's fantastic.
Whereabouts in Australia are you going? Which Super Netball team will you be supporting?
We will be on the Gold Coast, yes. So I'm quite happy about that. Definitely hoping to get a little bit stuck in with absolutely not playing, but I'm definitely keen, especially more on I think player welfare. I think, it's no secret now that that's a huge passion of mine, and I'd love to try and kind of get involved at some point, or just see where the land of the light lays, and just then be able to try and bring home as many tips and stuff as possible. So yeah, it's exciting.
Fantastic. Chloe, you're not going to Australia, are you? Not yet, anyway.
I look at flights nearly every month.
Chloe's Super Netball nerd should probably be in Australia, I think, to be fair, covering the sport, seeing as no one in this country is covering it properly. That's what I would say.
I was just in bed at the weekend screaming out Latanya Wilson's name. That was unbelievable. But yeah, no, it's so cool to see you being able to go and live out your dream though, Claire. That's so nice to hear.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I feel like we should probably just end the podcast there, because that's really cool. But no, look, it's we're going to talk a little bit about the grand final in a bit more detail, but we've got a little bit of news that dropped earlier on today. First of all, Joe Harton retired. Another superstar kind of departs. That Commonwealth gold medal winning team now kind of technically just down to Beth Cobden, Helen Housby and Nat Metcalf still playing. Jade Clark still playing, but I think Jade Clark will still be playing some form of netball for the next 15 or 20 years, to be honest. But a bit of a rebirth this season for Joe as well in Australia, Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, I think she is one of the great things about Joe's retirement was just where all the love was coming from. It's literally coming from three different countries, Australia, New Zealand, and England. And that transition she's been kind of quietly making into more of a performance coaching role, like what she did for England at the Netball World Cup. Like, I know players have loved like being coached by Joe, and then the Giants themselves going under a little bit of a renaissance, no thanks to Casey Kapua. Like, that's just another great little twist towards the end of Joe's career. So, yeah, look, a legend. And I think one of the big things that Joe has done is like the technical and the tactical role that she has played as a goal shooter, the kind of mastery that she has. It's just going to be, I think, above all, Joe as a person is brilliant and a great interview, but on the court, that kind of skill that she still has, really, I think probably the mind is willing and the body may not be. We know that she's been struggling with injury towards the end of her sort of playing time, but yeah, what an absolute titan of netball in the world, right?
Yeah, unreal. Claire, memories of Jo Harton? She's been a fantastic servant to the game.
She has, yeah, and I think I've always really admired Jo. I think the way she just conducts herself, the way she carries herself, you know, she's someone that I think does all the talking on court through just pure ability. But then I think when she's done interviews and when she talks, I love her leadership style. She's, you know, she seems so supportive of her teammates. You know, there was a bit on her retirement post today that she said something along the lines that she's always respected the passion that her teammates bring to the sport, and she just seems, you know, an absolute team player, and I'm really happy for her to have that turnaround with Giants this season. I loved having the kind of Casey Kapua one end, Jo Harton this end, just showing that experience is so valuable. And actually, maybe it was that confidence boost of Casey coming in and kind of going, you know, age is just a number. Like, I know this game up here, I know this game so well. Maybe to inject that kind of, yeah, actually, I'm the same down the other end. So yeah, I think to be able to finish on a high for her is something that's going to be super special. But I think she can look back on what has been, you know, a career that only happens every once in a while. So yeah, super happy for her.
And there are reports, Paul, that things at the Giants might change as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's also kind of going on in the background of all of this, perhaps. So just want to.
I was going to mention that about Giants. I'm refusing to mention the fact that the Swifts are on a lost 4 out of 5 because Chloe predicted Swift's downfall at the start of the season. Now, they're not going to not make the top 4, so let's just rein it back in. Chloe's prediction is still going to be wrong, that they weren't going to make the top 4. She's been taking little snipes on that the whole time, so I thought I'd call it out.
Anyway, it is what it is. I'm just saying, without saying anything anymore. Apparently, I'm not allowed to.
I don't know if any of you had the chance to read Fee Thomas's piece in the Telegraph on Gabby Marshall and concussion. Has anyone read it yet? Pretty obviously serious situation, Gabby, who we saw, and it was brilliant to see at the O2. She was alongside Lucy Goodman, sort of doing it in venue kind of announcing. A really horrible time of it. I think that's the main takeaway from the interview. It's the first time she's spoken candidly about it. And obviously a few things that maybe a few questions for the Super League to ask in terms of how they go about that concussion protocol. I can't remember if we chatted did we chat with you around it? Was it when it happened earlier in the season?
Yeah, very briefly. I don't think she'd had her second concussion, but this is something that I'm really kind of huge on. I'll never forget my last season, and I think we had 3 different concussions in one season, but then we had one of our players who had 2 concussions in very quick succession. And it's really clear that, you know, actually we don't know what really we're doing. I don't think we're confident in what we're doing, and we'll scale this right back. You know, concussion research predominantly is all based on the male brain, which is completely different to a female brain. So I think if something does come out of this whereby Gabby can really be a pioneer for concussions in sport, I think she'd be the absolutely perfect person for it, to really drive the seriousness of concussions in sport, but also actually the research that's out there and being able to learn from other female sports in terms of what they're doing, what we need to be knocking on rugby's door, for example, and saying, right, what do you know? Because the more contested our sport gets, this is going to happen. And do we need to be looking at our S&C and strengthening certain like neck muscles, for example? These are all things that can be really kind of proactive factors, that when you do have that inevitable hit, if your other muscles in other areas are strong, it might make that impact less damaging.
Yeah, Chloe, this doesn't look like something that's going to go away, I don't think. The speed, the intensity, the professionalism that the sport is looking to play at on the court kind of needs to be mirrored off it. And I think that's what comes through in Fee's piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what she says about the SCAT test and how you can kind of fudge it or like not. Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me is like, let's be overcautious. Like if that's going to ultimately, we don't know the long-term consequences of this. So I can't even finish that sentence.
Yeah.
And that's what's worrying, I think. And to your point, Paul, like reading Gabby kind of still processing her early retirement while still suffering symptoms, I think that really needs to hit home a little bit and for folks to really understand what that means. And I think more generally, when an athlete goes away injured, they tend to come back, or, we hear about that. It's not so obvious with a head injury. It's not like an ACL, right? So it was cool we did say hello to Gabby and, our well wishes as she continues to sort of navigate that. And like Claire says, I hope something tangible lessons can be learned off the back of her experience, because professionalism is also about all of that as well, about making sure that people are safe.
Definitely. And I think as well, the unpredictability of concussion is that it can, you might think that you're all right after a day or two, but actually it can affect you 5 days later, when it's settled. I had a massive black eye in my last season, and I thought, I was absolutely fine. But my processing was so slow. But by that point, it had been 3 or 4 days since the hit. So I thought, well, there's no point in getting this checked now. And also, how can I have just done 2 training sessions, but then on the Thursday, for example, kind of go, oh, well, I don't feel too well. This could have ended a lot worse than what it did. But I remember being in a gym on a Friday morning, and I thought, gosh, I feel so groggy. I feel so slow. But you just think, well, it's Friday. It's the last session of the week. And I didn't notice at all that a treadmill was running, because someone was on it and they'd just taken a break. But it was my treadmill that I usually used in the gym. And I went to stand on it.
Oh my God.
And it took my feet from under me. And I was like, oh my God. But I hadn't clocked that it was even moving. And at that point I was like, no. And I had a massive, massive black eye, a lot of disturbing looks from people in the gym. And it was there that I thought I absolutely should have called that after the game. The bruise came up straight away, but I personally felt like I couldn't, because it had been 5 days after the knock and I didn't feel like I could, really. So it was a case of cracking on.
It's taken a lot of sports who have got a lot more money and who are a lot further along the line in professionalism. Like, it's taken them a long time to get to grips with this, whether it's NFL, whether it's rugby, whatever it might be. I think if netball can learn anything from Gabby's story, like you said, Chloe, it's to be overcautious, it's to be ready early, it's to have things in place right away, effectively. And I think that has to be the takeaway. But we wish Gabby well, obviously, and hopefully we might get a chance to check in with her in due course. But great to see her in the first instance, and a tough tale of what's been a season that everyone wants to focus on a lot of positives and a lot of learnings, but that one of the real sort of sad stories of the season. I suppose we get back onto the grand final. Big picture takeaways from the grand final, first of all. I think first we have to discuss the O2. Chloe, you and I were there. I said at one point to you that I felt it was a great venue, but probably needed to be rotated with other great venues, just because of felt like a very heavy London bias. You said, absolutely no way, this is where it should be.
Was I saying that because it took me 15 minutes from my flat to get there? Maybe. No, but I just think the overall experience of it was just like, it is one of the UK's premier stadiums. Like, it is that for a reason. It has that force. It's why big musicians go there, because it is like a great stage. And I think some of the other arenas that we've been to in recent times, it stages awkwardly sometimes with the like, certainly up in Leeds I found that, and in Wembley as well, it just looks a bit odd off. Your like seats are none of that there. Courtside was legitimately courtside, which was like very cool. You're very close to the action. And then there's also the restaurants and the fan park and everything that went with it, and I think if you can replicate that around the country, by all means go there and do it. But I think it was super ambitious, wasn't it, and it was one of the big things that was announced quite soon after the league relaunched and rebranded, but this was going to be the goal. 9,892 people in attendance. We checked, right, Paul, with this one, because there were some other numbers floating around.
There were some random numbers floating around. No one was accurate, but I did ask Laura, England Netball, for a total. As you said, that's definitely the total.
But it was like super cool to soak up and see like fire and cool graphics and really just like a packed out space with just like very excited fans, albeit, as you say, slightly partisan because it was London. So maybe that is its fault in that sense. Yeah, I don't know. As a spectacle, I thought it didn't really want for much more.
Claire, you were watching at home, right? Like, what was your takeaway from it? Because obviously maybe a slightly different experience on TV to what Chloe and I felt when we were there.
Yeah, I actually thought it was one of the better coverages. I thought, like, the picture, for example, I thought was really good. You know, the sound, I thought was probably one of the better sounds that we've had all season. Few teething problems, I would say, just in terms of the graphics. So few graphics, few graphic mistakes, I suppose. Which, again, I think, as we know and as I've been very vocal about before, for me, it's the basics done well that I think have to be the focus going forward and has to be the priority if we're going to really kind of solidify our netball culture as a whole. And I think when we get to the grand final and you're getting the titles of the winning coach wrong, as well as the score wrong at the end for a grand final, is a little bit less forgiving than at the start of the season, where we probably could expect some teething problems. But I just would have loved to have seen just more. I would have loved to have seen kind of, I don't know, maybe more something that Serena Guthrie was alluding to, I guess, in terms of more of a build-up, I suppose, leading towards the grand final. I think that would have been super special if they'd done that.
Yeah, I think it looked brilliant. I think when you and I walked in, Chloe, it was empty just before the fans started to come in, and it did have the look of a big event taking place, which I think is obviously what everyone wanted to happen. And I think sort of around it, there was some great stuff. I didn't get a chance to go into the fan park because I was coming straight from work, but Chloe, you were in there, and that felt like a really good occasion. There was an off the court live. There was, I believe, the Super 7 that hasn't been actually officially announced as a Super 7 yet, but the players seem to know who they are. Like, that was all done officially. There were a couple of teams with some merch stands in there. There was a chance to have a go at the Super Shot. It was a lovely sunny day. Everyone was pouring out of North Greenwich, and that area there just lends itself really nicely to a big occasion. So I think so much of that is great. It was disappointing. I called it out last Tuesday that there hadn't been much coverage all season, and it was really disappointing that we didn't see much, like in the way of match reports or styles. Sky had a journalist there who did a really nice piece I saw on the website on Monday. I didn't see too much from anyone else. That feels disappointing to me. That's a two-way street. I know that because I've worked on both sides of the fence, and I feel like in this desperate search for page views, everyone kind of wants to find a story that will just find its way onto Google or be viral or whatever it might be. But you need to tell a story over a 15, 16-week season to get buy-in so people can understand it. So not that I expected people to just come in, cover the final, and then go away again. I feel the lesson for media coverage there is tell the story from the start of the season. I kind of said that on social media. For those who were there, but everything kind of worked pretty well. Like from a professional point of view, Chloe, right? We got our requests in for who we wanted to speak to. Spoiler, you'll be able to hear from them soon. Vic Burgess and Bird, Funmi Fadoju and Shadine van der Merwe. That was great. Small criticism, and this is probably a netball thing, like the seats were behind one of the goals, so it's quite hard to get a proper look of the game. Chloe, would you agree with that?
Yeah, no,
Nice
I
seats, like it was great to watch, but from a detail point of view.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally in those sort of bowl type stadiums, like media we're quite high up, but we're put on the sort of horizontal, at least so you can catch the whole pitch or court or whatever it is that you're covering. So yeah, in that sense, if we're being picky, I have had to go and watch it back to check what was happening down the other end, but yeah, couldn't see the box in necessarily all its glory as well from our seats. The box, indeed. But yeah, to your point, it is, I think, unreal because this is the 4th time these teams met, so why not take the opportunity to tell the story of how they got there and what happened previously. But it was good to see some tactical analysis, to have Tamsin back in that position. Like, that's so what the game needs as well, to explain the quality of what people are seeing as well. Like, I think that's really important, so cool that was there. But yeah, look, I think if this is the start, as we're being told, then let's hope for more off the back of it. But yeah,
where did we stand on the Champions Walk, where they went up to collect their medals and came back down again?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the DJ.
Being in the way.
And I think you kind of pointed to it, but I would have loved the prize winners to have been announced, to have made the most of that occasion, because I think that has been really poorly communicated. There's still no graphics, nothing until like today. It's Tuesday. This happened on Sunday. The folks that were there in the fan park at the time would have seen who got those awards. But you had a player, Rolene, like literally pick up 4 awards. That's massive. She's playing for Nottingham Forest. That's massive. Like, what a missed opportunity, I think, in that sense. And also, aren't these awards sponsored as well? Like, is that not something that should have been factored in terms of exposure and coverage? I don't know. But, that for me. And also, I think, to explain the awards and how they worked and how they were voted for, because there's been a bit of a confusion, if I'm being polite, online. And I guess you create a vacuum, people are going to wonder and going to fill it in for themselves. That, to me, was just maybe a bit of a miss. But you asked me about the Champions Walk.
Yes,
there is a poetic side to it where it's like NSL netball is really connected to its fans. It's still one of the quirks. Like, players do signings every game, and fans absolutely love that. So I can see the purpose of it. Choreography probably needs tweaking a bit in that sense, but yeah, maybe the DJ moving. But other than
I liked it. Claire, what did you think? I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked it. I think what I would have liked is actually maybe if they stayed that once they all had their kind of medals, maybe if they'd stayed there so they could actually savour the moment with their medals. And I think just being up that high, what I imagine is just being able to take all that in.
Yeah.
I think that would have been quite cool actually if they had their opportunity as a squad with their medals being up high. But I just thought it was really touching that kind of on the way up and on the way down, any kind of loved ones, or I saw like some coaches that were on the side, so daughters, children, etc., that they were just able to have that quick moment with their mums or cousins, sisters, an old coach, etc., because those moments are so special, and you don't always kind of get to those people immediately after a game, because you are expected to just kind of go straight into the sign-in of programs, etc. So yeah, I think actually a really real kind of touching moment, and a moment that just is for them, so yeah, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. What about the game itself? Started messy, didn't it? I think that was the big takeaway. Let's very quickly, scores 53-45, so Pulse won by 8 in the end. Quarter scores, Pulse won the first 12-8, Lightning the second 16-15, Pulse won the third 15-9, and the last quarter was a tie. So there was never really that much in it, but Pulse probably, if you look at the basic stats, just doing enough. Claire, what was your kind of big picture thought on the game, the result?
I had a real head and heart fight. My heart said Loughborough, my head said Pulse. And, it is those games that essentially whoever does the basics really, really well, and I never get bored of hammering home the importance of basics, but that will be the ones that come out on top. I think my initial kind of thoughts were Loughborough know how to win. So they've got themselves into tricky situations this season, but because they are so experienced in winning, they've got themselves out of tricky situations. And I thought that they'd probably come in confident with how they started against Pulse in the previous game and know that maybe they just have to kind of look at ways on replicating that first quarter more consistently. Where I had doubts with Pulse was perhaps more of a game management perspective. They have some very fiery characters, very, I'd say, reactive responders who previously and in previous seasons arguably have got umpires involved quite quickly that have pulled them away, I would observe, from the game plan, which has left them in some tricky situations and not being able to solidify crucial gains. Where I've been super impressed with Pulse this season is that more mental side of the game, so being able to kind of stay in the moment longer, which has been able to allow them to stick to the game plan. And I thought once they had maybe got over a few first quarter nerves, they seem to just continue to gain momentum, and I think that third quarter for them in particular, they seem to be enjoying themselves, which I think then allowed them in that fourth quarter just to play with quite a fair amount of freedom because they'd gone on a pretty crucial momentum run. And so I think by mid-third quarter, I think I probably predicted that Pulse would just have this.
Yeah, it's interesting, like lightning and chasing, right? And it's the realities of what that looks and feels like, not least on the biggest stage that netball has been on since 2002. But one of the big things for me, and I to quote myself as I love to do, but last week I said in the preview of this grand final, accuracy on the shot is going to be really important. Now, so to take you through the shooting stats of the game, Liv Sheen in the 1 point, 34 from 36, 5 from 9 in the super shot, so 56%. Nicole Briett, 7 from 9 on the goals, the 1 point, so 78%. Super shot, 1 from 6, so you had 17%. Now for Lightning, which I think kind of determined a lot of their fate in the game, especially when you compare it to the performance that came out against Thunder the week before. Samantha Wallace-Joseph, she shot 26 from 29 in the 1 point, 5 from 11 in the 2 points, so that's 45%. Her average for the season in the super shot in the regular season was 73%. So she is actually the joint fourth most accurate super shooter in the regular season, and she was at 45%. Against Thunder, she shot 13 from 16. In this grand final, 5 from 11. Berry Neal, we'll probably get into Berry Neal's performance more generally in the game, but 1 from 1 and 0 from 1. So 0% super shot. And Ella Clark, she shot 2 from 3 in the 1 point and 3 from 7. So at 43%. To hammer that home, her season average was 71% for super shots, so she was ranked joint 6th. And Berry Neal, just while we're here, it was 68% average in the super shot, she was ranked 9th. So I think if you look at that, Lightning probably in the regular season had, as a club, the most accurate super shooters. So you needed that to work in this game, and it kind of didn't. And I think I was saying to Paul before we started recording, if you actually go back and look at, I think third quarter, it was like 33-37. Lightning missed a super shot, Pulse score a super shot. We're at 33-39. Then Lightning missed a super shot and Pulse get the ball down the other end. If you can't legitimately catch up and stay there against the best defense in the league, who are having a great game. Like Funmi was straight on the intercept super early. Halima Adio probably had one of the best performances I think I've ever seen. And to that point, I've been critical of Pulse in their penalty count. I think Hallie Matt was the only player in double digits. She was on 10 penalties. Everyone else was under that. Zara Everett, who I think we can probably say has been quite a heavily penalised player, kept herself to 8. Those little things are really, really important, to your point, Claire, about doing the basics well. And the basics include shooting, right? And if you can't do your job as you're expected to do as well, I think that was probably frustrating for the Lightning players on court. We know netball is about oversupplying your shooters, but when your shooters aren't getting the ball in, any netball player will know that's hard, especially on that occasion. So, Paul, what do you reckon? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think that's a really interesting one. And I want to pick up on what you said there about sort of those missed shots at crucial times, because at the end of the second quarter, Pulse were pretty much in cruise control, weren't they? Just before half-time, Lightning sunk 3 in a row, and Pulse had been comprehensively in charge. But those 3 in a row turned the deficit from like an 8-goal deficit down to a 2-goal deficit at half-time. And what I said, Claire, and this is where your ability as a psychologist is going to help us massively, is it's a very different game when you have to keep chasing and the pressure is on you to keep making those shots. And I think probably because Pulse had played so well in that third quarter, maybe Sammy, maybe Ella just felt that pressure a little bit more. We obviously can't quite define it, but obviously you've got way more insight on that type of thing than us. But that feels like it's a natural thing to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think starting from that first whistle, you could sense the nerves. There was definitely a lot of kind of nervousness, I'd say, on both teams. And I think at first, you can kind of call them kind of uncharacteristic misses, and you kind of say, well, this is playing in front of a 10,000, crowd. That's never been done before. So you can kind of start maybe in the first 5, 6, 7 minutes kind of understanding. But again, it is about that team who overcome those nerves and actually, one of my favourite phrases is actually viewing pressure as a privilege. You're in this situation, embrace it, stick to your processes, stick to your game plan. That's what connects you, and that's what kind of keeps you in that bubble to block out external noises and the crowd, etc. And so I think, again, it was always going to be probably that team that rode the wave of the nerves, found momentum, found control first, and I believe that was Pulse. And I think then in an occasion like that, it is incredibly hard to chase the game. It's hard anyway, but to do it in a grand final when you have done however many weeks to get to this final point, and you're so close to kind of being on task of solidifying your overall goal, it's so hard unless, everything is coming together, shooters are getting their shots in, defenders are turning over ball. It is so hard to then play against a team who have become very comfortable in the pressure of the game.
I think, to your point, Claire, we'll hear from our interviews, but it's so what you're saying is matching so well with what we heard, because Sam Bird talked about there wasn't a question of belief. They'd passed that. Pulse had passed that point. They were like, we're going to win. It was such a solid mindset going into it. And then one of the things that struck me when we spoke to both Sam and Funmi is that they both mentioned an intercept from Nicole Briett. And it sort of struck me as we all have our little moments where we watch a game and we decide where it was like won or lost, or like that was a really big moment. But clearly for them, the goal attack coming out and taking an intercept was one of those where, like, even if the team as a whole as a 7 might have been going through a shaky period, or they might have been, that kind of reconnected them back together, and it was like back to purpose. Like everyone's doing their bit really well. Like, God, look at Nicole, she's just done that. That's why I'm gonna stay and do my bit. And to the credit of, I think, Pulse's attackers, like when you actually watch their off the ball defensive work, it was relentless. Like truly, I think it was an effort of the 7, and Halimat comes off. I think she confirmed online it was cramps, and then Darcy comes on, then Hanny wants to come back on, and they're doing this interchangeably, but they all kind of, still ride in the rhythm of this game, of this momentum. And I think Vic Burgess points to errors really being one of the pitfalls of Lightning in that game. And I think that was quite clear as well. Some of the errors that got called, they were quite basic. Like we had footworks, we had 3 seconds, we had all sorts of calls in that game. So yeah, it was, I think, the side that really did back themselves most into it. And there was a line from Vic Burgess, again, everyone will hear, but that kind of points to that, where she sort of said, this group have been in five finals in 6 years, Paul? You're the numbers man. They almost forget what it means to be in a final. Like they forget that we're proud of them for having made a final. It's the norm, right? Yeah, exactly. So when you're up against, that mindset versus of like, we've already won this, it's quite an interesting meet. But tactically it was quite interesting as well, because the box, we knew Pulse were going to do the box, and Vic talked about how they tried to work through the box. But to me, like Funmi and Hallie and obviously the work at the front that was going on, and the centre switch, which Paul, I'm going to pass to you to talk about because I know you're passionate about that. But it's just the little deflections, the little tips, the gains are just significant. Hard for Lightning.
I think lots of little things worked, right? Like you spoke about the basics, Claire, and I thought Funmi was obviously player of the match, and you can't argue that she was deserving of it. Sort of lots of turnovers, lots of sort of gains all over the court. I know Liv had a sort of slightly shaky first quarter, but as you pointed out, 34 from 36 in the 1 point zone. When her team needed her, she was absolutely brilliant, and she thrived off it. Serena said something when we spoke to her last week, that when she goes well, the whole team feed off of her, and you could sort of see that start to course through the team as Liv was finding her range. But the centre change is something that I think probably embodies what Pulse have been about this season. Gracie Smith came on in the third quarter, and it comes with a risk. The game kind of wasn't done, not by any means. But like she did in the major semi-final, she had a significant impact. I mean, her penalty count was quite high in that quarter. I think I pointed it out to you, Chloe. We did finally get some stats, and I think there were sort of 5 penalties in that quarter. There was 1 interception. There were 11 feeds. Like, that's a lot going on from your centre. And we forget that she was doing her GCSEs a couple of weeks ago. But so to come on and have that kind of confidence to sort of let the ball go, and I think maybe over the course of this season, and maybe we'll talk about this when we get into sort of the team of the season, there's been a little bit of a dearth of sort of maybe risk taking from centres. You might say better than me, Claire, but that ability to just get the ball in and trust. We know that Liz Scholes has it with Liv, but when Gracie comes on and she's able to feed that ball into Liv, and let's be clear, they're both 6-footers, they stand above most people, so can ping it in. But it just felt, they played with a freedom in that third quarter. And maybe it's youth, right? And maybe when Gracie's 20 in 3 years' time, and the trials and tribulations of life have caught up with her, she won't play with such freedom. But you know what I mean? She's able to come on there and really express herself. And Sam spoke to us right at the start of the season about that 10th player in her squad, and she wanted it to be someone that stayed true to what Pulse were about, and it ended up being Gracie. There was lots of debate, lots of chat about it. She more than proved her worth over the course of the season. And I think alongside a whole host of players in that final, you make a great point about Hallie, who was a brilliant goalkeeper on the day and communicates so well. And one advantage of those seats behind the goals that we were literally, when she was off with cramp, she was talking Darcy through the game as well, which I think they're little things that you don't always see when you're outside. And I thought the team just played impressively, and they did lots of little things well, and they made their changes at the right time. Chloe, you spoke about this before, like about trusting the changes that you make. I think Lightning brought on Jodie Gibson for Shadine van der Merwe very early. We spoke about Ella's sort of uncharacteristic struggles. They didn't bring on Bella Bayliss, didn't bring on Sophie Kelly because they were trusting what was going on at the attack end. Darcy Everett ended up with the game rather than winning rebound, and we've just spoken about Gracie's impact. So I just felt there were lots of little things that went Pulse's way. But enough of us talking about it. Let's hear from Sam Bird first of all on sort of the end of a journey for them, or not the end, the start of a journey, as she says. Sam, you've been up there at the top most of the season. You feel like people have been chasing you the whole way. So how maybe satisfying as well to get a win at the end of it and a trophy?
Yeah, I think so, because we obviously came out the blocks, we were really strong, had big wins, and then we had a little dip in form, and there were things going on behind the scenes that caused that dip that obviously public don't know about, but the way the team rallied around each other. You know, we had girls taking GCSEs, trying to finish their dissertation, coming off the back of a really intense international season, and then just really needing a bit of a mental break. And so we knew we would dip. And it was just really giving those players the faith that that's okay, but actually you're a quality side and we will come back. And so that since that dip, our confidence has then built again really about what we can do across every position. And I was really sad not to get Sophie on today because she's been outstanding as well. But I think that the sort of tipping point on that was just keeping Nick was picking up ball on defence so well. But yeah, it's just fantastic.
Sam, after that victory by Lightning on Thunder last week, you were there, you felt it and saw it. You know, what was the game plan? What did you see from that? You thought, right, when we're going to come out here in the O2, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I think seeing Alice up close and how she did such a good job on El Merwe, I thought she really closed her out of the game, so it was really good to see that up close. And then obviously Sammy was really good last week as well. And whilst we know all of their, they're a stacked side, but we felt those two ends were really, really strong. And so to really just focus on shutting out those two ends, we felt that we'd be stronger across the court, and I thought we did that really well. I think Sammy had a little spell where she sort of stood up, but on the whole I felt we dealt with her really well, and certainly Libby was outstanding. She took quite a big hit in the ribs and was struggling to breathe, and I just kept saying, right, you've got 6 minutes left, got 3 minutes left, just keep breathing and you're staying on. And that's the sort of thing she's learnt through the international season as well, just being tougher and standing up in those big moments.
And it felt like putting Gracie on at half time into the second half, that was a win in itself, because she had come on, you could bring that impact, and that was when Lightning had caught up with you. So to have the momentum, still the lead, and then to bring Gracie on after her performance as well in the semis felt like to me it felt like a bit of a momentum swing for you guys, and she came on and did a great job.
She did really well, and I think Tyler did a really good job in the first half as well, and she's absorbing all that pressure. She's playing Nat P when she's at her fittest and freshest in the game, and I thought she absorbed a lot of that energy. And then what a pleasure to be able to chuck another 6 foot centre on that can drive. I mean, Nat must just think, oh, here we go, so to have two real engines, big rangy engines with different styles is just really good recruitment, right?
One last quick one. You mentioned it a little bit at the start, but this is obviously the culmination of a bit of a journey for the team and for the young guys who've come through it. So when you can sit back and sort of prepare for the signing window as well, which is literally hours away, how satisfying to have seen this group come just with a few tweaks and grow as a team.
Yeah, it's been really good, and I think also a shout out to their loyalty. We have invested in some players that have gone, and that hurts me when that happens, because I put so much into players that I recruit. I really do, and I want them to come on the journey with us, and that hasn't always happened with a couple of players, but the majority of these players have stuck it out, and they've got over those losses, and they've stayed loyal to the club, and they've improved, and they really deserve this win for that loyalty as well.
I think it was just an amazing match. I feel like both teams really went out hard. Like, we have Sammy Wallace putting in her 2 pointers, but we also had Nicole Brett, who's getting intercept on the line, and that's an amazing thing to do as a goal attack as well. We have Liv shooting the 2 pointers. We have I feel like throughout the whole game there was moments of just brilliance, and we were really able to push on from that.
Sam sort of said you never thought you were going to lose that game. That was the whole atmosphere, the vibe. Is that how it felt?
It did. I just feel like it's something that we've been believing since the very beginning of the season. It's like the culture that we can do anything as long as we put our mind to it, as long as we stick to tasks, stick to our structures and our setups, that we can do anything. We have the talent, we have the experience, we have the flair, the youth. I feel like this year is just our year. I feel like we've been telling each other that for the whole season, so we just believed it no matter what.
I spoke to Hallie a couple of times this year, and she used the words like champions mindset and annihilate mindset was something that is that something that just went through the team?
I feel like literally every single sentence, like every single like quarters we come, like when we come together, it's always the words dominate, devour. Like there's some crazy words out there, but it just actually is because we have so much passion in our team. Like I feel like we get energy from turnovers, from the 2-pointers, from intercepts, like stuff like that. And so once we do start doing that, we're able to build on that, and team can kind of like shut that down, because then when they see us, they're so fired up on court, they're just like, wow, what is going on? And that's kind of what our brand is, the fact that we're all very like passionate people. And just
none of you have hidden away this season, and Sam I've spoken to a lot, from the fact, sorry, that's just so people know, that's your medals, Jinky. Have hidden from the fact that you wanted to be champions this year. So how satisfying to be able to kind of do it?
I feel it's very satisfying. I feel like we knew we could do it, but we just had to prove it to everyone else. And I feel like people had their doubts at some point, saying that you're such an experienced team, so why are you like maybe losing this match and not doing as well? And it's just, we just knew that it wasn't anyone else, it's just ourselves. Just had to, like, we were making the mistakes, and as long as we fix that, then we can be a team that no one can beat. And
Tactically, Funmi, a player like Samantha Wallace-Joseph, what are you doing? What are you thinking? What's the game plan?
We just knew that she's very dominant in the 2-point zone, so we'd have to shut her down as early as possible, get in front of her, and if she's a good player, she's going to find a way to get in front. We have to put a solid 3-foot mark and make sure we get in her shots early, so kind of put pressure on her. And I feel like she felt that today, like she missed a few, and I feel like that's just because we were just on her physically, emotionally, like any way possible, making sure that if they're going to make her do most of the work in the 2 points at the time, then we're going to make sure she feels the pressure and she feels that weight on her, so that she'd have to go above and beyond in order to do her job.
And Funmi, this is London, this is where you're from. You get to win here at the O2.
Yeah.
Did you have family here for you?
Yes, I did. I had my family and my friends from since I was 7 years old, year 7. I had my church friends, I had my whole community came in today.
And how much does it mean to you to be able to do that?
It means your club. It means so much. Like literally, I'm on court and I can just look over to the crowd. I'm just like, hey guys, and I can see them cheering for me. Like they gave me flowers. They like my mum has a big poster. I hope they all saw that. And it's just like that, knowing that they're behind me, it just means that I have nothing else to lose. I just have to go out there and do my job, and no matter what happens, they're still going to love me and support me. So that felt nice.
Yeah, Funmi, fantastic.
Thank
well done,
so
congratulations.
Much. Thank you.
So Sam and Funmi, and obviously spirits very high, as you would expect from the winners. We'll hear from Vic Burgess shortly, but a little bit on Loughborough, who you kind of alluded to it. Chloe weren't quite at their best. Claire, what do you think didn't quite go right for them on the day?
Well, I felt for them because I think they had kind of such a standout performance the week before. Alice Harvey was probably the best I have ever seen her, and I was really excited for that fire and that passion, because I thought she was the instigator for a lot of turnovers the week before. It just wasn't clicking for some reason. I thought Beth Cobden was outstanding in shutting down Liz Scholes. I thought she made it really hard work for her. But yeah, I thought, for me, I think Ella Clark has been a bit of an unsung hero this season for Loughborough Lightning. I would have loved to have seen her get a few more minutes. I think she really embodies the Loughborough way and kind of understands how Loughborough play in general. And I think just from a curiosity point of view, I think I would be really interested to be kind of a fly on the wall, if you like, around what perhaps gave Berry Neal the edge to start over. Because for me, I think Ella Clark has it was perhaps her time, I think, to solidify that starting role in Loughborough. It's Berry's first season. Not that means you start on the bench, for example, but when you're up against a very seasoned player for the same team for a number of years. It makes me very interested. I think what maybe Vic Burgess sees in terms of Berry Neal having the edge over Ella Clark to start.
It's really interesting, Claire, because when we asked folks for questions, one of them was like, why didn't Ella Clark start? Especially because she was quite significant. As you pointed to the game last week, she had a massive impact against Thunder. But for whatever, it's not something that we put to Vic, to be honest, right, Paul? But Berry did have a torrid start, 3 unforced errors, not putting too much ball up. I could see the logic. She was going around the back, running the baseline well, and that's what she does. That's kind of like Berry's MO as a goal attack. But it felt like she was sort of getting caught up in the box and wasn't really helping Samantha Joseph with the load, and because there was so much attention on Sammy and Sammy wasn't getting her shots in, it really would have, you would have wanted your goal attack to stand up. And I felt the change came a little bit too late. I think maybe you would have pulled that a little earlier. I think it was about just as the 8th minute was ticking down, and that in the second quarter, right, that the change was made. And to your point about Alice Harvey, I think as well, 19 penalties she sat on by the end of the game. Penalties had been advanced against her. She clearly wasn't doing the job on Liv, and Paul, you spoke about how effective Liv was in the 1 point, and that ball into Liv from Liz was, like I pointed out when these two guys met in the semi-final, Liz never stops looking, even with all the attention that she's getting. That connection is not broken, and Liv grows, Liz grows, and then you add Gracie in and it's like ping 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 ping, like there's no fear, and I think the effect of Alice had worn off. Like she wasn't doing anything, and Pulse was sort of like, okay, that's fine, we'll keep going. And it was interesting because Jodie Gibson came on for Shadine van der Merwe, which I think was the right call at the time, but you almost wanted we wanted a change at goalkeeper, and perhaps that's where the recruitment didn't really, from Lightning, like at the very end, didn't quite pay off, because you can't put Jodie Gibson in two different places. So and you lose the height of Alice Harvey. So, and I think Beth Cobden was probably the best of Lightning that day in terms of 5 gains. She was picking off intercepts as well. Like, everybody was trying, but there was just, errors and but Pulse were still finding a way to win ball.
Yeah, I think errors is a good shout, and a lot of them were uncharacteristic, right? As we pointed out, we've been on this stage a lot of times. So as much as we sort of said Pulse doing lots of little things well, I think probably Loughborough did lots of things not quite well enough, and the two things ended up meaning that's where we got our result. I do think how Lightning evolved that mid-court is still going to be a big question for them, because as great as Beth was, and I thought Nat Panagari was quietly effective, as she always tends to be, like her and Hannah Joseph, that trio has been the same trio for a long time, and it's probably the reason they've got to as many grand finals as they have. But I've alluded to this a few times, they do feel like once you can kind of stop that, and once you can shut it down in some ways, there isn't a proper change-up for them. Like, if the change-up is Ella Clark for Berry Neal, okay, but that's quite a straightforward change-up to try and deal with. So I do wonder how the team might evolve. But we spoke to Vic after, who is always great value, and we were very grateful to her for her time. As well, Shadine van der Merwe spoke to us after the game too. Shadine, defeat in the end, how hard is it to take?
I don't think it has sunk in yet. It's 20 minutes after the last whistle blew, but I think it was just great opportunity to play in front of this amazing crowd. Like, having 10,000 plus people is such a privilege to be able to play in front of such an amazing crowd. I'm gutted. It was a tough team coming up against, maybe a few errors from our side, but you know what, in the end, it's a full team effort, and I'm so proud of the girls. Like, we fought to the end. We're going again next year. So you know what? Unfortunately, we didn't get the back-to-back, but we'll be back next season again in the final.
Where do you think that Pulse kind of had the advantage in the game?
It's actually like I said, like, I don't know where, I can't even think like where it went wrong or where it actually didn't go our way. But I just think in the end, in the final, it's a team that's going to stay in control for the longest. It's going to pull it over the line. And I must say, it was quite hard playing in front of a crowd that was so loud, and it felt like a bit like an extra player. But it's great because you want that energy. But I think it's just like I said, it's a team that's going to do the least errors is just going to pull it over like in a final.
Yeah, you said it's quite difficult to sort of take stock of it now, but at the end of that sort of second quarter, you kind of felt like momentum might have shifted your way.
Yeah, and we knew like after the first quarter, like okay, we're still in it. Like there's still like 45 minutes to play, and coming back and going into only 2 behind halftime is good. You're still in the run. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get that extra notch just to like take it over like a goal and stuff. Like we always allowed them to get into a gap like 8 and then we'll bring it back, and then it was just like that battle of like, oh, we need to just like get over that last hurdle so that they end up chasing. So I just felt like we were chasing like the whole time on the scoreboard. But yeah, it was a good game. Like it was just crazy and it was amazing to play.
Yeah.
As you just said, Shadine, the three-peat wasn't quite there, but it's still quite an amazing journey that you guys have been on as a team. How are you looking back on it?
Oh, 100%. I just say to the girl outside, like this season has flew by. Like to think like we have started the first round and now we're here in the final. Lightning, trying to push for the 3 wins. It's still like Lightning is a club that's known for history, and just to be able to play for the first time in O2 with so many people is such a history making as well. So for Lightning as well to be able to keep pushing, being a finalist team is such a great privilege to be part of it as well.
And on a personal note, a sort of season for you, you've changed clubs. How do you reflect on it personally?
Yeah, I think like everything happens for a reason. Like after not being offered like a contract with Thunder, like, and you're like, okay, something else maybe is heading my way, and Vic rang me and it's like, okay. So it was good for me to be able to just do like be part of a team that knows to make history, to be part of like a winning culture. I'm like, okay, cool, like I can just push myself, and I've like personally like really enjoyed it. I focused on myself. Like I think I've grown as a player and as a human being a lot. So it was just great for me, for my own growth as well. So I'm very proud of myself as well.
And will you get a break this summer, or will you be into the Prettier camp?
Yeah, so I would say 4 weeks I've got off from today, and then I'll go into Prettier camp. So for the first 2 weeks I'm going to go on holiday, chill out, relax, do nothing, don't think netball, and then I'll have to get straight into, because we've got a few series coming up, and I'm so privileged to be able to be back in the Prettier squad.
Nice.
Great job.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Thank you.
All good. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Disappointed, gutted, and then I think like what a game, right? Yeah, massively competitive. I think that we had some moments to take it and opportunities to take it, but didn't capitalise on those opportunities. Some uncharacteristic like errors. I think from our perspective, I didn't feel that the game was lost at any key points. I felt like it was just a little bit of momentum for us, a bit of momentum for them, and but I at no point felt that we were too far from them to actually like win this. So going into even the last 3 minutes, I felt that we had some really good opportunities to turn the game around. So I think at those points it probably could have gone either way, but we didn't capitalise on the turnovers that we got, and made some errors. So pretty gutted to not get it across the line. Would have been nice to do the treble, as in back to back. But this is sport, right? And these things happen, and somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose on the day, and unfortunately it was us today.
We spoke to Shadine, who said pretty much what you just said. You were always in, but could never just quite get close enough. Can you put your finger on like kind of why that might have been?
No. No, I think if we look at and obviously I will watch the game back, but not straight away.
Give yourself time.
Give myself a bit of time to take my mind off it first. But I don't think we were losing it in the same way, if that makes sense. So I think I think we'd worked really hard on what the game plan was going to look like this week, in how we can exploit like their box defence, how we can be smarter on the ball, and make sure we've got multiple options. And I felt like our structure was so much better than the last time we played them, and really pleased with that. I just don't think that we capitalised on the opportunities that
there were no
had.
runs really, were
no
there?
runs, like really limited in their runs on us, and I think we did a good job of being smart through their defensive structure, because ultimately they've got an awesome defensive structure, right? So And they're one of the best at the box. So it's just something that we like looked at last week and thought this is how we can really kind of exploit it. But ultimately, there was parts where we didn't sink the shots, or we'd made a couple of errors. So the structures I was really happy with. So it was just very kind of disappointing not to get it across the line.
And as a coach, Vic, this crop from Lightning, it feels like you're a particularly tight group.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the journey, the roller coaster maybe that this season was.
Yeah, I feel like there's been some awesome performances. It took a little bit. I think we've got a couple of new players in there, obviously this season. And probably other coaches have said this, like. A lot of them are with international, so you don't get a lot of time for connection as the season starts. You're kind of having to do that through the season and build those connections. So I feel like that has happened really nicely across the season, and ultimately, I think I'm really pleased with the group, and I'm proud of where we've got to today. Like it's not easy that we've this our 5th final in a row, and it's not easy to make a final. And I think sometimes they forget that, that it's tough, and they need to be reminded that this is, that we're proud of them. But yeah, I think there's a massive element of disappointment. The girls are upset and will want to kind of reflect on it and move forward. But I think I am proud of the journey this season. There's definitely been ups and downs, and every season is so different, in different ways. So let's see what happens next season with that journey. Yeah.
Signing window starts tomorrow.
I know, I'm knackered. I'm so tired. Let's see what happens there. I go on holiday the week after, so.
You're keen to keep the group together though, Vic?
Yeah, keen to keep the group together. So but let's see on that.
Yeah, we'll see. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
So that's part 1 done and dusted. Join us in a few days' time when we'll have our full review of the season, including our team of the year, and that gets very intense. Until next time.